For over 22 years, I was on the hunt for freedom because that was the big thing for me. And from a relatively early age, I thought that meant creating wealth or success in the traditional sense, in the external sense. I thought that that was going to bring me the freedom that I craved. I believed if I could just arrange the world in the external in just the right way, I would be able to feel that sense of freedom and peace that I hadn't, and I'd been seeking and searching for so long. But then later on, even after going through these loops of reaching certain milestones and then having it slowly fade and then reaching more milestones, having it fade and come back and go, what I realized is the underlying feeling of entrapment, confinement, and being caged still remained. And at the time, I had absolutely no idea that I had fundamentally misattributed the causation to an external factor. And it wasn't until my very first awakening, which was some 7 or 8 years ago now, that even the extent of that misattribution was seen, even though it was seen in a very fleeting and kind of tentative way. I still reverted back to old patterns of seeking in the external. However, at least for the first time, I started to get the insight that maybe I was looking in the wrong direction. And even though those old patterns of seeking in the external would still arise, at least the idea had started to sink in that maybe I was looking in the wrong direction. And then it wasn't until the non-dual seeing through the illusion of separation and the separate self in itself, that I was able to fully grasp the extent of the misattribution that I had engaged with in the world and that had driven all of my actions and behavior. And in that moment, I truly began to fundamentally understand in a deep way the true causation of my inner dissonance, and really the primary root cause of dissonance on a much wider scale as well. And if you've ever had that non-dual glimpse or that glimpse into your true nature, even if it faded back into the sense of the separate self and back into that contracted feeling of being the separate self, that seeing definitely acts as a course correction, and it's something that can't be unseen once it's seen. And it's so simple and so obvious. And then even though old patterns of energy and misattribution and misalignment might still play out, and you still might get pulled back into the idea of being the separate self in this looping oscillation, it still serves as a significant course correction over the idea that what you seek is in the external world. And for me at least, it really was in that instance that 22 plus years of seeking, either external or internal, had come to an end. And even though for a while after that, those old patterns of energy that were in my energy field still played out, the seeking could end because it was finally seen what the root of the dissonance had been all along. And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through how this misattribution and then realization can fundamentally end seeking across the board. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to do something a bit different to my usual videos. If you would like to participate, we're going to play around with a guided inquiry exercise to see what we can uncover. And we're going to try and pierce through the illusion with some clear seeing. So if you're interested in that, stick around until the end and feel free to play along. Hi, my name's Todd. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, I like to talk about all things consciousness, non-duality, and the hidden mechanics of reality so you can be more empowered on your own awakening. And so if you're interested in those kind of topics, definitely hit the subscribe button and you'll be updated with new video releases and any of my free gifts and downloads that I sometimes offer. Now, when we talk about misattribution, what I'm referring to is what is the primary causation and the root of where we're feeling dissonant, where we might be suffering. And it really brings me back to the analogy of in marketing or business, if you don't know or if you're not involved in those industries, it's really, really important, and companies spend lots and lots of money to get clean data, to get clean analysis and interpretation of that data so they can fundamentally attribute the outcome of certain marketing or business endeavors to the correct causation or to the correct source, because misattributing the productivity and outcome that a business is experiencing to the wrong, let's say, marketing campaign or business effort can be fundamentally detrimental to the growth of the business, because if you end up diverting all of your resources, time, financial, energy resources into the wrong endeavor or misattribute the wrong endeavor as causing the productivity or the sales or the profit or the revenue, then you end up pouring resources into the wrong place that aren't going to generate the productivity that you believe it's causing. And so it can be analogized to that, in that for the first phase of our lives, oftentimes we're taught by society, whether it's consciously or subconsciously or through osmosis, we're taught that all the answers to our internal turmoil, suffering, dissonance, whatever you want to call it, all of the answers are in gaining in the external, gaining in the material. And so we take on board that misattribution that the answers are in the external. We take that on board. We fully believe it, we accept it, and then we begin to navigate the world, and we begin to pour our own resources, our own energy, our own time, our own work, our own efforts into solving for dissonance and solving for suffering in the wrong place. And so at the most misaligned level, we start looking externally. So we might start thinking that more money, a better car, better jewelry, a better partner, a better physique will solve for dissonance, will solve for the suffering that we're feeling, will solve for the discontent. Even if the discontent is on a subtle level, we still believe that it will be completely resolved through acquisition in the external. And this loop can last for decades and decades. It can even last in some people for their entire lives. And how many stories are there of rich and famous celebrities who have everything you could possibly want in the external, and their suffering not only comes back, if it faded even at all for a while, it comes back with a vengeance, and then they choose that it's just too hard to go on. And even with absolutely everything you could want, they succumb to the suffering. And then we come to the people who start to get an insight and start to have an experience, or maybe even that first awakening, and they start to realize that their first perception, their first misattribution of what could solve their internal suffering, maybe was incorrect in the first place. And so they start to look still somewhat external, but they start to look for answers in intangible ways. So maybe this is personal development. And from this perspective of personal development, they're attacking the problem from, I am not enough, I need to become more. And when I become more, that will certainly put an end to the suffering and dissonance that I'm still experiencing. And I'm not saying this is bad, because this is a much better step than only seeking material things and things in the external. However, this still is a certain misattribution into the original causation. And then we get to people who are on the spiritual path itself and who seem to be constantly in a loop of always feeling like they need to heal, of always feeling like they need the next best practice, always feeling like they need to read the next book and have the most extensive spiritual knowledge of all the traditions, all the religions, so they can become the most knowledgeable and most well-versed on all of the spiritual paths. And they build the identity of, if they're the most spiritual person they know, then they'll be worthy, then they'll be enough, and then there'll be no dissonance. And again, this isn't a bad thing, like I said, but if we want to talk about alleviating that suffering in the dissonance, really at the core, at the true causation, it's still fundamentally misaligned with the truth, because there's still that identification with the illusion of the separate self. The fundamental misattribution and causation of all the suffering, at least from my perspective and my experience, is the very belief of being the separate self, the very belief of having a separate identity in a subject-object world, the very belief of separation in itself. The very second that we buy into the identity of being the character, being the separate self, we immediately give opportunity for suffering to rise, for dissonance to rise, because we automatically and by default buy into the illusion. And that's why that non-dual awakening and non-dual glimpse is so important, because you fundamentally get that clear insight, that clear, simple, obvious insight that not only are you no longer the character, you were never the character, and it goes even further than that. Fundamentally, the character that you're perceiving the world through isn't even there. Fundamentally, there is no world out there. And in that clear seeing, the seeking can end, even if there's old energetic patterns that need to play out, even if there's old misperceptions that still need to play out. You can never go back to unseeing. And so the belief of being the separate self and the belief of a world of separation can be fundamentally attributed to the root cause of dissonance and suffering, because the true nature of who you really are exists outside of all concepts, descriptions, and any kind of dissonance or suffering that could arise. Everything that's able to be made aware of, everything that's able to be described, anything that can rise or fade is fundamentally not your true nature. And so if you're having the difficulty of seeing clearly, seeing through the illusion and trying to understand what I'm talking about here, or if you've seen it and you're oscillating in turbulence, feel free to play along with the guided exercise I'm about to go through. And as a caveat to this guided exercise, I want you to approach it from the standpoint of ease, playful fun, and not force, determination, and emotion. Because if there's still a lot of strength with the idea and belief of separation and being the separate self, forcing this insight can cause unnecessary irritation when the goal is to just relax back into the true nature and relax back into the self. So if you want to play along, stick around. Yeah. Close your eyes for a moment. Let the body be however it is. There's no need to fix the posture or control the breath. Let it be. Just notice. Notice your awareness. Where is it looking right now? What sensations in the body are pulling on your attention? Is there energy stuck in the body somewhere? Maybe a heaviness in your chest, a knot in the stomach, pressure in your head. Whatever it is, just notice it. Or is there an uncomfortable emotion? Are there erratic thoughts? Whatever the sensation, just notice how it pulls on your awareness. It pulls your attention away from center, like a magnet. Just notice the pull. Don't judge it. Don't try and resist it. Don't try and avoid it. Just notice that sensation pulling your attention. Now ask yourself, to whom does this sensation belong to? To whom does this stuck energy belong to? To whom does this uncomfortable emotion belong to? To whom do these erratic thoughts belong to? Who is the owner of all of these? Really look for the owner. Leave no stone unturned. It's time to find who owns these sensations. And as you conduct your search for the owner of these thoughts, emotions, sensations, begin gently noticing the one doing the looking, the one conducting the search itself. can oscillate between this for a bit. You can search for the owner of the sensations, and then you can search for the one doing the looking. Back to the owner of the sensations, back to the one conducting the search. And as the oscillation continues, now try to do these simultaneously. Try to merge the search as you're looking for the owner of the bodily sensations. Simultaneously, look at the one conducting the search. Calmly, gently, not with thought, not with force, just with subtle intrigue. Where is the owner of all of these bodily sensations? And who's the one doing the looking? Where are they? Can you touch them? Are they both here? Can you touch them? Can you feel them? Can you pinpoint them in a location? Continue this for a little bit longer. Look for the owner, look for the looker. Look for the owner and look back at the looker. Look for the owner and back at the one doing the looking. And gently and calmly, at the count of 3, we're going to drop the search entirely. At the count of 3, quietly and gently drop back into silence and cease the search. 3, 2, 1. Drop the search, just like a curtain would fall from the sky. Drop it and just rest. Sink back into the presence that's already here, always been here, never left. If the mind objects, let it object, but don't move from here. If thoughts arise, let them. If sensations arise, let them. Just be here. What do you notice? What do you notice in this space where you are? Were you able to find any owner at all? Were you able to even find the looker, the one conducting the search? And from this space, you might be able to see, either for the first time or once again, that the sensations that were pulling your awareness before belong to no one. They're just sensations that pull. The stuck energy in the body is stuck to no one. It's just stuck energy. The erratic thoughts that arise and fade, they're just thoughts arising for no one, fading into nothing. From this space of peace, stillness, and freedom, no activity touches you. It just plays out. From this space, there's nowhere you need to go. Nothing to strive for, nothing to earn, and nothing to seek. This here is where seeking ends. The search is over.